Hi, it's Sharon. Today we're watching House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 6, Smallfolk, which I'm guessing means the Smallfolk are gonna be doing a rebellion or rising up or something, like Rhaenyra was trying to spur them on to doing, and like the failures of the Greens with Aegon and Aemond in charge have spurred on with the poorer people as well. They're not exactly happy with them. But maybe it'll just mean the episode will focus more on the Smallfolk, though we have been seeing a decent amount of them. I love this show. I am very stressed every time I start a new episode. A reminder that you can find the unedited version of this reaction on my Patreon, and let's go.
Tell my brother we are ready to march. As soon as Prince Aemond is able to join us.
Oof.
On Vega.
Oof.
And until the prince makes his answer.
Oh, we're gonna get you out of house and home. Mm-hmm.
They're most eager.
I mean, now dragons are involved, you wouldn't want to do anything, make any moves without a dragon of your own. Of course the Lannisters bring lions.
Are the Lannisters so diminished that they cannot march from the Tooth to Harrenhal without an escort?
I mean, dragons are in play, I don't blame them.
A large dragon in the rivulet.
An offer of marriage, perhaps, to the Dowager Queen.
Out of the question.
Mm-hmm.
It's time you set out for Harrenhal, I think.
Aemond, you're not going to make a very... I mean, Aemond is not going to make a very good king regardless. But if you don't listen to anybody else, you're going to make an especially shit one. Stop reveling in your power.
I see we're all agreed.
You all picked him as the regent, you idiots.
Your Grace.
You were her favourite for a long time.
So, sure you'll be much pleased to return to more domestic pursuits.
I mean, if he wasn't bringing everything else down around him, you'd just say, fuck you. She loved you best she could, living with her own traumas. But this all would have happened even if Alicent had come out and said, no, Aegon should be king. Shouldn't be king, even. They'd have just conspired to put Aemond on the throne if need be. So a woman couldn't possibly do it. They're all like, damn it, I hope she'd pick me. Is
Your Grace?
he a descendant of the Targaryens somehow?
I find myself, and indeed it is true, your grandmother's grandmother, Rhaenyra, was born a Targaryen princess.
I mean, with the noble houses, it's going to be watered down like this, isn't it? Especially with all the Targaryen interbreeding.
Consider the risk involved
Yeah.
in such a venture.
You couldn't tell me, but based on my grandmother's grandmother, no thanks.
The dragon.
You
They might eat you.
understand your peril,
Like,
Stefan.
they might roast you and eat
To
you.
do this.
Understand the risk, and I accept it with gladness. I swore to ward my queen with all my
I was
strength.
hoping we might find someone a bit closer than grandmother's grandmother. But I think you just can't see
Perhaps the
past
gods will favor us.
the glory of, like, if he succeeds. I'm not saying he won't succeed, but this man cannot see past the glory of if he succeeds, he'll get the dragon. We dreaming again. Yep, you were a shit brother. You're a shit uncle, shit husband, shit father. Again, you have your redeeming moments in all of these elements. There are times when you've been good versions of all of them, but... Harrenhal is not a good place for you to be, my lord.
You resent my being here.
He offered you mushy peas. I don't actually remember what he offered you when you were right, but peas were involved.
You.
I'm running away. I'm me at this time. I won't come back.
There's something wrong with me.
That has been true for a long time.
It came to him, and he did his best. It's not a prize to be won, but a burden to bear.
Mm-hmm. That's the correct way to view the crown.
I need help, Alice.
Yes, you do. Severe help. We'll get you checked into a place soon.
In 3 days' time, the winds will shift.
Magic to kill... I mean, I still think she's not real, but... Grover Tully's gonna die. I have a feeling this man's gonna get chomped. Like, I do also think they're gonna end up with some dragon riders, but surely the first guy to attempt it is not gonna succeed. Especially when it's his grandmother's grandmother. Is Sea Smoke Rhaenyra's, and Rhaenyra's technically still alive?
No Harris, see smoke.
Imagine if just like anybody could technically tame a dragon if the dragons were just like chill enough. Like if you just show yourself as strong. You're doing it, you're doing it. Yeah, I'd much rather claim a baby dragon and grow up with it than claim a grown one.
I've done it.
Oh. We've got one of the dragon keepers as well. I saw that coming. I guess it... I don't know, was the blood too diluted? Or was it because he was cocky before he'd even, like... The dragon was like, no you haven't. It's not going to be hard to start descent.
Brats of lamb, my love. Mince pies, honey cake.
I mean, I don't think they're going without in the castle, but I don't think they're feasting, but they... It wouldn't actually surprise me.
With dance. And his rightful heir denied her seat.
Doing their job well. I would actually, what I would really like to see is what they are eating in the keep, because I don't believe they are going hungry, and I don't believe Rhaenyra is going hungry, but I could believe the Greens are feasting. I just don't know whether this is made up or not.
No use wondering what
They're definitely getting a better service than the Smallfolk.
Sensational. His numbers were few, but we may yet retake.
Okay, physical violence is not a good answer here, Rhaenyra, but
I think that you have forgotten to fear me.
it's not how you win loyalty, Rhaenyra. That man, I mean, a sharp word or something, but these people, they see a weak woman and they will never treat you the same way as a man. That's why the succession was so important before it happened. Something I really do like about this show is that they don't make Rhaenyra a saint. She's not perfect, and you know, it would be very easy to paint the Greens as black and white evil and the Blacks as brilliant triumphant heroes, because that's what people want. But Rhaenyra isn't perfect. She's made mistakes. Her biggest mistakes were in the years leading up to Viserys' death. And even, you know, like, you can't just hit people. I know it was only a slap, so like it's not the end of the world, but that's not okay. A part of me really enjoyed it because they're such, you know, misogynistic pricks, but...
Will it be enough?
We have laid the kindling only. Tonight we will.
See, like, good propagandering that Otto would have been doing, the bastard, would have been making sure people knew that the only reason you're going hungry is because the evil witch Rhaenyra won't give you your food, and she knows you're suffering. We've treated with her to ask, just give the small folk something to eat, but she's evil. You know, he'd have done something to make it look, reflect badly on her. We are valiantly trying to bring this awful, unfortunate war to an end, but the evil Rhaenyra, you know, again, like, somewhat true because they are blockading, but like the Greens are also not going to just casually surrender either. Like, you have to be smart about these things, and that was something Otto was good at, but he couldn't really read the people close to him.
And what to begin to flare?
Have bought more than their share.
All the more reason Sir Tyler must break the blockade.
In the meantime, the people are hungry.
What are you going to do about it?
It hurts me that your grace has yet to name a hand.
No wonder you've been sucking up to him.
Do you take me for a fool?
You're a suck up.
I'll make it your responsibility.
My prince, it is an honor I've never considered for myself.
Not a service hand, you toad. My grandsire may be overcautious, but his devotion to his family has never been in doubt.
I was going to say, it's a smart move at this point. Laris will turn on them when he can't rise any higher.
Has regained consciousness this morning, if only for a few moments.
Aemond is going to smother him with a pillow. And then he's half wants to smother him with a pillow, and half is like, what if he says that it was me?
Nothing.
His visceral reaction to Aemond does not make me think it was nothing.
Some of us must serve in smaller ways, even if they are not what we would choose.
Like, I'm 5.
There is a large dragon in the Vale.
Ooh.
But alas, wild. Alas.
Don't do something foolish and try and claim it. Maybe she'll
A
succeed this
merchant,
time, but...
The gay abandon will take you to...
Stop wasting your life waiting for something that'll never come.
Has he done anything to at least look out for them? Make sure, you know, especially when they were younger, that he had enough food and whatnot? Or did they just completely ignore them until he had use for one of them? Or is it like a gift of food from the true Queen Rhaenyra to the Smallfolk? Which, you're very much relying on the people who find it, sharing it, and not just being like, me and mine will be alright. She sent loads of them, okay, fair enough. That's a much better plan. But also shows you just how much food they have access to with the blockade, on their side of it, of course. I mean, if he lives and is in constant pain, it's somewhat karma for all the rape he's committed.
To my father.
No word from Sir Otto, as of yet.
Is he just fucked off? Does she need him to wake up and say, I name you Regent, in front of people, and then...
If he wrote letters, it would be to you.
Hmm.
You were always his favourite.
I mean...
Strange there has been no word.
His favourite that he forced into the bed of an old man, as a 14-year-old.
When there is news to send. Clever. As adept with his lute as he is with his sword.
Best of her sons, by the sounds of it.
And a feature in the... He's kind.
I think he was so much better off not being raised at court.
Kindness is a... Was it the court? Was it their mother?
It wasn't just their mother.
I'm sure you did your best.
Their father, their grandfather, the world they were in. You were a child. She's not completely faultless in how they were raised. But she was a 15-year-old girl when she had her first kid, like...
With gifts from the Queen. She thinks of us even now!
It's a smart thing to do. The Red Keep did not... The Greens and the Red Keep did not do a good job of keeping the Smallfolk on side. They alienated them at every turn. But turning on each other... How do you know his family don't need it as much as you, but people get desperate?
We must leave. Now.
I think they're probably safer in here, aren't they? Like, isn't the Sept probably safer? Or there are people trying to swarm the Sept?
There's the Queen of Fishes! Keep moving!
I mean, you are wasting food by throwing a fish at her.
Get up! No!
She said no. They are hardly the root of all of your evils. I mean... Jesus Christ. Rhaenyra has played a masterful game with the Smallfolk. Did she get a cut on her arm like she cut Rhaenyra's? First I thought it was just the guy's blood.
Accusing a member of our household of casting malign spells.
Alice Rivers, is she a ghost?
And they will underestimate you. And this will be your advantage.
So,
No.
trying to keep him on side. Does he want to die? So is this what he should have done? He should have gone to his brother's side. He should have been there in his grief.
Brother.
It was his sister that died as well, when you think about it.
Our own healer, Alice Rivers, volunteered her renowned skills.
Okay, so she does exist. Unless there's a different Alice Rivers. I mean, if he came out of all this with a new self-introspection, look at his life and his mistakes, you'd have to respect him for it. Oh dear. Dragon hungry. Or, because that is that sea smoke that fled Dragonstone. And that is Laenor's mount, right? So does he recognize him? Like, brother! Brother of my rider! If it wanted to kill you, you'd be dead. I mean, she did say she thought Sea Smoke wanted a bond. He's like, friend! Be my friend! I'm lonely. Will you be my friend? And he's now thinking, oh, this is what I've always dreamt of, my place being asserted.
Your banners were
Bastard blood is stronger.
Daemon himself.
He has ever done what suits Daemon.
2 women wronged by Daemon Targaryen.
I fear what he may now do.
He's losing his mind in Harrenhal.
He may have turned against me.
It is more his way to disappear.
In either case, I
is considering turning against her. I will say, oh, the white worm. I can't remember her actual name. Like, my brain fog, and I haven't said it enough for me to have it in. She is masterful at earning people's trust, because obviously she has done deeds to get Rhaenyra's confidence and to get Rhaenyra's trust, but not this level of intimate trust. Like, it shows you just how skilled she is at getting close to people. And I don't think she has any malicious aims. I think she is genuinely doing her best to help Rhaenyra. Partly, I guess, it also shows you how lonely Rhaenyra is and how much she needs someone to talk to. But it's just fascinating to me when you think about where this woman started this season.
And Caraxes with him.
But it has felt natural.
And her dragon are dead.
He was still a child.
And she's giving her a level of fucking hell.
One after many, but I lived.
This is not a trust
To myself, I
she
would never
shares
trust
easily.
anyone. I believe you are meant to be queen.
I'm glad Rhaenyra isn't completely alone and has someone she can lean on. There have been little moments between them where I've been wondering. Good for Rhaenyra. And good for her, because I don't remember her name. And also, this is going to have made some people really angry, and that makes me laugh so much. I'm just, again, she's not alone. Even if they had just been friends, I would have been like, it was having someone you can lean on and depend on, and oh lord.
Begging your pardon. Your Grace.
The
Greens?
I don't know who else it could be.
Shall I summon your council?
Who from the Greens could it be, though? Like, who do they have that doesn't have a dragon? Other than Aegon being alive and claiming a different dragon? Like, he's alive and well, because Aemond has a dragon, Helena has a dragon, and then Daeron, does he have a dragon? But it could be him.
Mother!
She's riding out. She's taking action. Spurs taking her, woman. Okay, so give me 1 second. Actually, I want to look up Mysaria. That's the name I had in my. I was like Mysaria, because I want to know her name. Mysaria joining Rhaenyra's team is actually 10 out of 10, like the best move they could have made, because she has a similar thinking mind to Otto Hightower. Now, she acquired that mind very differently to Otto. She did it to survive. He did it because he was the second son. But, you know, I really like her. I don't really like him. But she has that kind of mind. She's able to look at the board, look at the pieces on the board and manipulate them. You know, she knew that in that, if the people rise up against the Green, many of them will die in the riot, and it probably won't topple them from the Red Keep. Maybe a really sustained effort of people could make them have to flee, but the chances are it's not going to happen. It would be a lot of certain luck things would have to happen. They'd have to not involve any dragons or have the black dragons joining them in or whatever. But she has that kind of mind that she's able to look at the strategy, and she believes in Rhaenyra. Even before any of their intimacies began, she was able to look at this person who had no reason to trust her, no reason to keep her word with her, every reason to believe, given that she was Daemon's wife and niece, that she would behave to her the way Daemon had, and she didn't. And that inspired loyalty. It's one of the most frustrating things in a way, is that if all of these people could actually get to know Rhaenyra, from the small folk to most of the lords, they would, and also get to know the other option, they would all pick her as the best candidate. It's why as a viewer, so many people are Team Black and are like, how can you ever say anything nice about Team Green? And it's like, because they're all human. She would be a far better queen than any of the other options, than Daemon, than Aemon, than Aemond, even than Aegon. But she was a shit princess, and Viserys was a shit king. And I purely mean that in the sense of Rhaenyra just wasn't seen as the heir to the throne. She just chilled on Dragonstone. And I talked about this in depth in other places. That was her biggest failing. If she had been an integral part of court throughout the last years of Viserys' life, then it would have been far harder to oust her. I'm sure Otto still would have tried, but it would have been much harder to do. And if you think about over the course of one dinner, the Viserys was able to inspire Alicent to say something nice about Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra to say something nice about Alicent, and to have them being like, oh, do come back soon, over one dinner. Which is like, if he had ever actually tried to heal this blatant breach in the family sooner, it could have been done, and then there would have been Greens on their side as well. But instead, he just didn't do anything. And when Alicent would say to him, her children are bastards, he'd just be like, oh, don't talk about that to me. Instead of just being like, well, okay, but, you know, he just handled everything terribly. He was a weak king, which is better than a bad king. I'd rather have Viserys on the throne than Daemon, but Viserys' lead to Aegon's and Daemon's, because they seize power when they see the weakness. But Rhaenyra is the kind of person that would inspire loyalty. Now, I think there would be some lords who wouldn't support her because she's too honourable and strong-minded, in the sense that they couldn't manipulate her. There might be some who think Aegon is more manipulatable? Is that even a word? Than Rhaenyra. But seeing the way she inspired this woman who was just trying to survive and is now trying to help somebody else. And like, yes, she's getting something else out of it. She's a lady of the court, you know, she's not having to like struggle to survive. She's got enough food. But I think while it maybe started as a strategic thing, I really enjoyed watching their dynamic develop. And there have been moments where I've been like a little bit, but I wasn't sure the show was going to go there. And I'm never somebody to refer to, like, I try to avoid commenting on romantic things unless I feel like it's being done overtly, and I wasn't sure that this time it was. In the same way that some of the young Alicent and young Rhaenyra stuff, they could have been just best friends like sisters, or best friends who felt a little bit more for each other. And like, I think it was done ambiguously, and people have strong opinions either way over just what those feelings were. This, I think, might point it in one direction over the other, but that was never outright stated, so I've never been like, well, obviously they were in love with each other, because I don't think it is obvious. I think that's just an aspect of it. But for this moment, it just really struck me in that scene when they were talking that Rhaenyra was just being completely honest with Mysaria. She was just saying to this woman that, like 2 months ago, she didn't trust. She was telling her all of her insecurities, everything she worries, like, and deep, intimate stuff about Daemon and her dynamic with Daemon, things that, if she were to tell to the wrong person, could completely destabilize her legitimacy or her image. People would say, oh yeah, she's that weak one who she didn't want this, she wanted that. You know, she was useless, her husband didn't even love her properly or whatever, you know, like, it would destabilize her image, especially as a woman. But she trusted Mysaria, and Mysaria shared the heartbreaking and true story of what happened with her scar to Rhaenyra, and it was very clearly a story that she has not told to many people, if any people. So even if they had just embraced and that had been it, I would have been like really happy that Rhaenyra had somebody she could rely on, both to come up with strategies that work and to just believe in her and to remind her that she is good enough, to remind her that this is worth something. Now, obviously, I do think on both sides, it's how many people's lives are you willing to have happen just so that the right thing can be done. Like, maybe sometimes the lesser of the two evils is to just let the undeserving person have the throne and not kill thousands of people, but that isn't the world that any of us live in or that they live in. But she needed that person to remind her that she is a good enough queen, because in this episode she was wobbling. Because as much as that annoying council member dude probably deserved a good slap, I say with a huge asterisk that I don't believe violence is ever acceptable and that we should, like, don't do it. In the world of Game of Thrones, a slap is like nothing. And I do think in some ways resorting to it was a moment of weakness, simply because women aren't allowed to. Women aren't allowed to have moments of hysteria. Women aren't allowed, I mean, to show emotion, but it will be seen as the queen was quite unstable today. Whereas, if Aegon rapes a servant girl, it'll be like, well, he has urges, because of the patriarchal society they live in. She was struggling and wobbling, and at the moment her position doesn't look very good. She hasn't heard a word from Daemon, and she's right to think he's considering abandoning her, because he is. But for her to have someone so steadfastly believing in her, even telling her the sword is a good look, my question would simply be, does she know what to do with the sword? Obviously I think it's better to have one than not if you're in danger, but does she know what to do with it? But for them to have each other in that moment, and this thing that has organically developed over the course of this season, these two women who are kind of in very different ways, one a lot more privileged than the other, but they are both trying to survive in this world, and they are leaning on each other instead of trying to trample each other to get to the top, and it's very refreshing to see. And also just for Rhaenyra to just have that moment of comfort, and for same from Miss Arya, something of just wanting someone and then just getting to enjoy a little moment of intimacy together is very much needed given all the stress that's going on. And hopefully Rhaenyra will feel that touch less lonely. On the flip side of the coin, Alicent, who is also struggling, she was never going to keep power, and she had power, and I do think there probably were times when they did listen to her. I think while Viserys was alive, with the wider council, she definitely could have tried to overrule her father, but for the most part didn't need to, because Otto didn't really have much to gain from, he just wants power, so he's not going to try and do anything else with it. But she is definitely, in the same way that I feel like at this point Rhaenyra was kind of the conclusion of, I can't win this war, I think Alicent is just realising how completely not worth it all of this is. And for her to find out that one of her sons is kind and good meant the world to her, and broke her heart that it was the one she had nothing to do with. Now, obviously, Alicent is not a good mother, but I don't think she's the worst mother ever as well. I think she did the best with the tools she had. She did the best in impossible circumstances. No one blames their father as well. That's something that I often note, that Viserys is just praised for being a good dad to Rhaenyra, but he was the worst dad to the rest of his children. Alicent, the only parent she had left was Otto, and she was trying to survive in this abusive relationship because it was an abusive relationship. She didn't want to sleep with him. When he got old and incapable, it probably got better, but in this toxic relationship with an abusive father, an abusive husband, there was no world in which, in that situation, she was going to manage to be a capable mother. To be honest, the only way she probably could have been a good mother would be if she was able to completely detach herself from all of the politics and just be the little woman at home with the kids. But why should she? Because men aren't required to do that in the same world. Whereas it's a very different situation to Rhaenyra, who all of her children she had with somebody she chose to sleep with and she chose to have children with. She was the majority of the time while raising them, she was the head of whatever household they were in. It was a very different situation. So my heart does break for Alicent because she's aware of her mistakes. And when I see people reveling in that she's suffering or whatever, and I'm like, you're acting like she's the greatest villain that's ever lived, instead of just being a traumatized and abused woman who did her best to try and survive, did her best to try and play the same game all of the men were playing, but found that the world was against her and is now stuck with the consequences of her actions, but most importantly, and most largely, the consequences of everybody around her's actions. Why would you ever revel in that? And it makes me really wonder if these people look at history, are they like, lol, Anne Boleyn deserved it, without actually looking any further into any of it? I don't know. So it breaks my heart seeing Alicent and Helena. Helena, who literally asked none of this, is doing her best. As always, the wrong people suffer, because one thing I do think it would have been important for us to see in this episode, a scene of the Greens at dinner. I don't think for a minute they're only eating fish and thin stew and thin soup. I do think they are eating better than the Smallfolk, and I do think they are not sharing a lot of that wealth, and it must be very galling to see all these sheep go past for the dragons when you don't have any food. And we know for a fact that they are not treating the Smallfolk well, because Aemond and Aegon seem to have that attitude of they'll just be alright. Like Aegon alienated them by killing the rat catchers, and then Aemond doesn't give a shit that they're suffering. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next, but I feel like I wouldn't want to be a member of the Smallfolk, but then that will just anger them more and make them rise up even further. When you're watching this, I hope as well we all realise that we are the Smallfolk equivalent in our main world. The people in power don't give a shit about us. And like even Rhaenyra sending them the food wasn't done because she truly cared about them. It was done as a power move. It was done to get at the Greens. And again, I think Rhaenyra was probably happy that the Smallfolk got to eat. I don't think she's completely heartless. But it's important to remember that both sides are not perfect. But in this moment, Alicent and Helena are not responsible for them not having food. But seeing any member of the royalty and seeing them in their fine clothes and knowing that they definitely will have full bellies at the end of the day, I can understand why the anger came. And the most frustrating thing is that it once again was men overreacting, because that man grabbed Alicent's arm. The guard, like, she was shocked because obviously members of the Smallfolk do not touch you in general, and having any man grab you is a bit alarming, but in general, like, the Smallfolk stay separate. They know that they, like, and then while she was still processing what was happening, you know, Helena had been left behind, it was all very stressful, her guard draws his sword and she says, no, that's gonna make this situation 10 times worse, and also this man does not deserve to have his arm cut off for touching me. Like, no, stop, sheathe your sword. And of course the guy cuts off his hand, kills him because he'll have bled to death in the riot that followed, and causes all of the great riot that happens in all of the, and it was men, both the man who grabbed her, because grabbing her, what is, oh, now you've got food to eat because you grabbed the queens, like, what good was it going to do other than getting some rage out? Also, they threw fish, and I know you're sick of eating fish, but like, you are going to go hungry, and the bit of fish on the ground that you threw at the queen probably could have fed your kids. Like, yelling and screaming at them, yeah, but yeah. Again, Alicent tried to de-escalate the situation. It was not a situation that could have been de-escalated, but I think without the guy chopping the man's hand off, they might have been able to just trundle them into the car and drive off while the people shouted, rather than it getting violent. But then when she was like, sheathe your swords, the Kingsguard were like, I shall let myself die, rather than bring it out again. It was just a mess of men being stupid. You know, Alicent had a part to play in all of this, but it is not as big of a part as a lot of people make out. My heart breaks for the Smallfolk across the kingdom, because they are going to be the ones that make up the bulk of these armies. They are going to be the ones that die en masse, whether it's from starvation, illness, or in battle, or dragonfire. And no one cares in the higher classes, because they just want their own power. I was almost surprised that Helena didn't make some comment about about going into the, she would say something like, I don't fancy fish today, mother, or something, when they were leaving to go out. Though I do wonder now if her comment about her cricket or whatever that stopped singing, there were like 3 in a cage and one of them stopped singing, but I don't know what that means. I don't currently know what you would put that as. Aegon definitely wants to die. He's in constant pain. He's constant fear in a way of what Aemond's going to do to make it stop. Larys being like, lol, your life's gonna suck, but that's gonna be your power move. I mean, was he trying to once again get, I think it was a moment of genuine vulnerability from this awful man, but was he trying to like get Aegon on side, like, they're all gonna underestimate you because you're the crippled king who you got heroically crippled in battle, but now you're disabled, so fuck you, is what they're all going to think. But you can use that to your advantage. It was almost telling him play weak with Aemond, and then when he's not expecting it, you can strike back. I don't really, Larys, obviously Larys was like, well, Aemond isn't going to give everything to me. I've been sucking up to him and it's not worked. I'm always terrified of what Larys is going to do at any moment. And I also think, like, as much as he is someone that, like, I enjoyed Aemond dressing him down because, like, he's a terrible person, he could strike at any moment. He's someone to not be on, to be wary of. Like, if you're going to dismiss him, maybe dismiss him to the dungeons rather than, like, to freedom. Aemond is at this point just lashing out. There was a point last season where when things was in the penultimate episode when they were looking for Aegon, and Aegon was saying like, I want to be king, he doesn't. There were almost points where I was thinking like, he seems to have more of a strategic mind. He might make a better king than his rapist brother, but ever since he got the first whiff of power, he has just been about me, 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 me. So he proved to be just as terrible of a king as we would have hoped. I really don't know where this all is going. I'm assuming there's going to be some huge battle with the Lannister army will eventually join up with Criston Cole. I'm assuming Daemon will get his act together. I guess the little princeling in Riverrun will join Daemon now, but given that Daemon suggested he smother his grandfather and then turned all of the other lords against him, the kid's probably being counseled to not join Daemon. But maybe the threat of the dragon will be enough for them to choose to side with him. Daemon's visions, I don't know. What I'm most intrigued about is to see what Daemon is like after all of this. Is he going to be a more humble person? Is he going to be more self-reflective? Is he going to ask for help more often or acknowledge his own mistakes? Or is he going to emerge from this like, lol, I'm king now? Like, what will Daemon Targaryen be after this? And I also think it's funny. Not me, I don't think it's funny, but people are so upset that this plotline is taking so long. And like, I do kind of like, I'm a bit bored of it to a degree because it's not very developing, but he's not committing war crimes, so like, we're okay with him here. If anything, they probably would have been better off not having Daemon in a couple of the episodes, and just condensing his story down into a fewer. But he's like Matt Smith, and like everyone loves Daemon Targaryen, so they were obviously going to have him in every episode. I don't hate it personally. Like it's not the most riveting of scenes, but he's not. You know, he's done far fewer war crimes than we feared, so it's a win for the Seven Kingdoms. They do have someone called Alice Rivers because she went to Riverrun to help and killed Hoster. So maybe she is real, even though she seemed like she was a ghost. Unless like someone else is going to turn up and it's just Alice as a common name, all bastards are called Rivers. Like maybe there's just a different person called Alice Rivers. Because when Laris was saying, oh, they accused the member of our family or of our kin of witchcraft, I was like, oh, Alice Rivers. So I don't know what's going on with Alice. Or Daemon, to be honest. I'm pretty sure Rhaenyra is going to try to claim this wild dragon in the Vale, because I don't think they'd have mentioned it if that wasn't the case. Like, unless the Lady of the Vale herself is going to be like, I'm actually a quarter Targaryen, and go off and try and get it herself. But Rhaenyra, you know, she started off like, I've decided I'm okay with just being a small piece. That's fine. Everything's fine, 5-year-old. To, there's a dragon. Oh, there's a dragon. I think she's not going to be able to resist going and trying to claim the dragon and triumphantly flying in with the dragon to save the day. Which, given that Rhaenyra does need somebody to watch over her children, me, I don't like. Obviously, the dragon is a plus, but then like, who's babysitting the kids? We'll see where that all develops. My brain is doing that thing where it's like I have in my head like a mental list of things I want to discuss, and I can't remember if I hit them all or not. This reaction is going on almost an hour and a half in its unedited form, so I will leave it there. If I've missed talking about something, I'm so sorry. I think I've covered all the main points. But very much in the the building portion of the season, where there are 2 episodes left after this, I am so stressed because the first few episodes, the first half of the season, we've had a fair bit of bloodshed. The second half of the season, it's kind of cooled down a bit, and that friends. Oh, I know the last thing I wanted to talk about. Sea smoke. So Rhaenyra's plan, it's not a terrible plan, and then you need to try. Would a dragon accept someone who is that watered down? I suppose if he had just been like, no, I don't like him, in the same way that they rejected Rhaenyra, maybe he wouldn't have killed the guy. He'd have just flown off in disgust. I do wonder though if this is Sea Smoke. Sea Smoke is Laenor's. Laenor is alive. Laenor just left him. Wouldn't Sea Smoke be like, come back, come back, friend? So he chose his own rider, and he chose Laenor's half-brother, which to me makes me feel like he wanted someone that was familiar to him, someone that smelt a bit like his brother or reminded him of his old rider, you know, like that's what he wanted. And so maybe if they tried it with a different dragon, the Darkling dude wouldn't have been burnt to a crisp. Maybe he would have been accepted. But then if it is true, and I have to assume it is true within the show, because there is mystical stuff, that you need a decent bit of Valerian blood in you, then grandmother's grandmother didn't fill me with confidence. Bastard child, you've got half-blood, in the same way that Jace and that lot are able to ride dragons, in the same way that Alicent's children are able to ride dragons. I have no idea how many of these families have Targaryens married into the trees further up, but it makes much more sense for bastard children, and that was kind of what I was assuming they would look for, would be marriages more recently. Though obviously more recently, the Targaryens intermarry so much that there isn't, you know, among normal families, there would be dozens of branches where you could say, well, that daughter married here, that daughter married there, that son did this, that daughter did that. But because of the Targaryens marrying each other, it's much more condensed. And I know that was to keep the blood pure or whatever, but it's not worked out in your favour here, has it? And in the future, it also will not. So yes, that I knew there was something else, and it was that. So I feel like he is going to be thrilled about the fact that he's now important, and he's going to kind of, his being a bastard of Corlys's bastard, being half Valyrian bastard, etc., is going to pay off for him. It's going to give him glory. It's probably going to get him killed. But I assume he will be like, see, father, now I'm useful, now you have to pay attention to me. But I could almost see him joining the other side just to spite his father. The thing that makes me think he won't do that is because his brother is going to be Corlys's first mate, or like second in command, so he wouldn't want to be on the opposite side to his brother. If it wasn't for that, I would almost see him being like, this man has paid me zero attention despite me being his son. I'm going to go join the other side against him and see how he likes it. But I don't think that is what he will do, simply because I feel like Rhaenyra is going to ride out to join him, and he's going to be like, friend. But yeah, no, Sea Smoke was just like, friend, be my friend. Be my friend. Please be my friend. He's flown over him a few times. He's like, that could be my friend. That one reminds me of my friend. Sea Smoke just wanted a buddy, and now he has a buddy. So good for Sea Smoke. A reminder that you can find the unedited version of this reaction on my Patreon, and thank you so much for watching.